Well, after a brief setback, the release of the Hubble Space Telescope is set to go in about 3.5 hours. Earlier, there was a problem with a computer on the telescope, but NASA now says everything is ready. CNN's John Holliman joins us with the very latest. John?
Andrea, NASA managers say they will be able to do what they had hoped to do about 3 hours sooner, and that's release the Hubble Space Telescope from the cargo bay of Shuttle Endeavour. The problem? A computer part that looks just about like this. The spacefaring version of a computer modem went bad. This is the live picture from NASA right now. Managers and engineers at the Johnson Space Flight Center in Texas, who had some pretty long faces about 2 hours ago. Now they're looking more relaxed. The astronauts are awake and turning on spotlights out in Endeavour's cargo bay to shine onto the Space Telescope during the last few minutes of its connection to Space Shuttle Endeavour. What's going to happen next is in about 30 minutes, the robot arm from the Space Shuttle will attach itself to the telescope and begin to lift it very slowly and carefully out of the cargo bay. First, it will go to a position flying directly over the Space Shuttle, and then finally it will go up out of the cargo bay into this position where it'll be in orbit for the next at least 4 years. So, and that maneuver will take place at about 1/2 this hour. Will continue for about another hour. Meanwhile, managers and engineers on the ground will continue to put the telescope through a series of tests. They'll be sending radio signals to antennas here and on the base of the telescope, telling it to do various things. They'll watch to make sure it's able to do all those things correctly. And if it passes all those tests, at 5:26 Eastern Time today, about 3 hours and 18 minutes from right now, the robot arm will slowly move away from the telescope, leaving it in orbit more than 300 miles above the Earth. Andrea?
All right, John, thank you.
U.S. Space Agency officials have delayed the release of the Hubble Space Telescope from Shuttle Endeavour's cargo bay. Hubble had been scheduled to be released from the shuttle by now, but because of computer problems with its telescope, it's been delayed. At this time, the telescope's being lifted slowly out of the cargo bay. NASA says the release will take place in a little more than an hour, and its first test pictures will be available in about 3 weeks.
Headline News, I'm Gordon Graham. It's mission accomplished for the Endeavour astronauts charged with repairing the Hubble telescope. They're preparing to deploy Hubble, fitted with new optics and a new guidance system, back into orbit in about an hour. Hubble's release was delayed about 3 hours due to a last-minute glitch, but NASA scientists say now all systems are go. President Clinton will call the astronauts in space later this morning. Endeavour is scheduled to land Monday.
In the next 10 minutes or so, U.S. astronauts are scheduled to release the Hubble Space Telescope into orbit. The release was delayed a few hours to work out some last-minute computer glitches. But CNN's Miles O'Brien reports that the problems have been minor on this mission, a mission which was designed to upgrade images, the images from the telescope and the image of the agency that put it into space.
For high-flying handymen Story Musgrave and Jeff Hoffman, the devil was in the detail work.
I need the tether on the outside of the door.
It took twice as long as predicted to install a backup control unit for the solar wings which power the Hubble Space Telescope. With lots of little nuts and tiny connectors, the part was not designed to be replaced by an astronaut in full spacewalk regalia.
The screw is gone.
After chasing down the loose screw, Hoffman and Musgrave persevered. The control unit was installed, and the rest of their shift in Endeavour's weightless workshop went like clockwork. Handmade covers were placed over some exposed magnetometers. An ultraviolet sensing unit got some new electronics to make it more reliable. And the new solar arrays were extended with the aid of some astronaut elbow grease and then unfurled.
Really nice. So.
With the renovations complete, Hubble and the astronomers who use it were gleaming.
This is real, although it's hard to believe that it's real. Might be nice to go to Disneyland, but in fact, we got to go back home and go to work.
Hubble's ground-based masters will spend about 2 months fine-tuning the mirrors and machinery installed during this repair mission. Only then will we know for sure if the space telescope can do what it was designed to do, explore the outer edges of the universe.
Reminder, you've got a yaw maneuver coming up at 1930.
Whatever the outcome of Hubble's post-operative checkup, NASA has proven astronauts can do hard work in space. Over 5 nights of free floating, Endeavour's crew gave Hubble new gyroscopes, solar power arrays, a camera which should correct for Hubble's myopic main mirror, and a box containing prescription optics for the telescope's other scientific instruments.
I'm here. Got it? Yep, I've got it. Let it go.
NASA says all this proves its goal to build a space station is attainable.
If we get the right resources and the right hardware, that anything is possible. We've shown that on this flight.
Their work won't be complete until Endeavour's mechanical arm lifts and releases the space telescope.
And that's going to be a very emotional time, I think, for us.
An emotional end to a stunning week of remarkable feats accomplished as if they were routine.
Go ahead, KT.
Miles O'Brien, CNN, Atlanta.
Hello and welcome. After 9 days of pursuit, capture and repair in space, including 5 walks outside the Space Shuttle Endeavour and a frustrating final delay of 3 hours, the Hubble Space Telescope has been released back into orbit. CNN's John Holliman, who's been following the Endeavour's crew's attempts at in-space repair, says, so far, everything points to success.
The Hubble Space Telescope was last seen attached to the Space Shuttle just before dawn in the United States. It was released several hours behind schedule because a last-minute computer problem threatened the telescope's future. But a backup data relay unit was turned on from the ground, and the telescope started to send down good information from its new instruments. The telescope release caps the first 9 days in space for the Endeavour crew. Before letting it go, the astronauts sent back pictures of Hubble with Earth in the background. For 5 days, spacewalking astronauts have been outside with the telescope, making repairs and breaking records. But managers decided to keep the crew members inside while the telescope returned to its job, taking pictures of the planets and the stars. It will be 6 weeks at least before astronomers on the ground know if the repairs have cleared Hubble's fuzzy vision. But they're optimistic the pictures will be all they expected to get when the telescope was launched 3.5 years ago.
This clearly wasn't a dream because we're actually awake. And I don't think it was just 7 because there weren't enough problems. So I can only conclude this is real, although it's hard to believe that it's real, that we've gotten through this phase of the servicing of the Hubble Space Telescope so successfully.
But they had, and now the Hubble is expected to send back pictures of other planets almost as clear as the pictures the Endeavour is sending back of planet Earth. John Holliman, CNN reporting.
And on the phone with a presidential thank you to the space repair team. Welcome to NewsHour. I'm Bobby Batista in Atlanta.
And I'm Reed Collins in Washington.
A military tanker plane caught fire and exploded today at Mitchell International Airport in Milwaukee. 6 military men who were on the plane doing repairs are dead. The Army Air National Guard KC-135 was in a service area when it exploded. The plane belonged to the Guard's 128th Refueling Group. A spokesman says the fire spread too quickly to give anyone a chance to rescue the victims.
President Clinton said this morning his administration is committed to going beyond the Brady bill in terms of gun control. Under review by the Justice Department is a whole slew of gun licensing and registration proposals.
There are lots of issues here. We're going to try to deal with them all in an aggressive and forthright way, but we have to figure out exactly what to do and in what order. The possibility of movement here has just opened up, and the American people need to keep the pressure on, and we'll keep moving.
Again today, Mr. Clinton called for congressional passage of that pending crime bill that would put 100,000 more police on the streets and ban some types of assault weapons. This measure has passed the Senate but hasn't to the House. And Mr. Clinton offered some high-level congratulations to those high-flying astronauts above the Shuttle Endeavour. This after the crew this morning successfully completed the main portion of a difficult mission. CNN's John Holliman reports.
The Hubble Space Telescope was last seen attached to the Space Shuttle just before dawn in the United States. It was released several hours behind schedule because a last-minute computer problem threatened the telescope's future. But a backup data relay unit was turned on from the ground, and the telescope started to send down good information from its new instruments.
I've got good news. We have taken a look at that data from the B side, and it all checks out. The HST project would like to deploy today, and so we are going to go ahead and press toward a release.
The telescope release caps the first 9 days in space for the Endeavour crew and resulted in a presidential attaboy for the 6-man, 1-woman crew.
Well, the Vice President and I wanted to call you and congratulate you on one of the most spectacular space missions in our history. We're also proud of you, and we've been able to see you do all those things. It's just been wonderful, and I want to thank each and every one of you for what you've done. You made it look easy.
Well, we appreciate the thanks and congratulations, sir. That's nice, particularly coming from you.
Before letting it go, the astronauts sent back pictures of Hubble with Earth in the background. For 5 days, spacewalking astronauts have been outside with the telescope making repairs and breaking records. But managers decided to keep the crew members inside while the telescope returned to its job, taking pictures of the planets and the stars. It will be 6 weeks at least before astronomers on the ground know if the repairs have cleared Hubble's fuzzy vision. But they're optimistic the pictures will be all they expected to get when the telescope was launched 3.5 years ago.
This clearly wasn't a dream because we're actually awake. And I don't think it was just 7 because there weren't enough problems. So I can only conclude this is real, although it's hard to believe that it's real, that we've gotten through this phase of the servicing of the Hubble Space Telescope so successfully.
But they had, and now the Hubble is expected to send back pictures of other planets almost as clear as the pictures the Endeavour is sending back of planet Earth. John Holliman, CNN reporting.
Der Forschungssatellit soll bis zum nächsten planmäßigen Werkstatttermin in 4 Jahren die Erde in einer Höhe von 600 Kilometern umkreisen. Erst in einigen Wochen wird sich zeigen, ob die Sternenbilder mit der eingebauten Korrekturoptik wieder richtig scharf sind. So viel Zeit brauchen die Bordsysteme, um sich auf den automatischen Freiflug umzustellen. Erst dann ist klar, ob sich die Reparaturkosten von mehr als 1 Milliarde Mark gelohnt haben.
The American President Bill Clinton telephoned the astronauts to congratulate them on their achievements, saying they'd made it look easy. Swiss astronaut Claude Nicollier released the telescope from Endeavour's loading bay as the shuttle flew over the southwestern coast of Africa. The crew made a record-breaking 5 spacewalks during their 11-day mission to fit new guidance, power and optic systems to correct Hubble's blurred vision. There'll now be 8 weeks of fine-tuning before NASA can tell whether the repairs have been successful.
Swiss astronaut Claude Nicollier released the refurbished Hubble telescope back into orbit, and NASA officials say if all repairs prove successful, it will be a boost for the troubled U.S. space agency.
Saturday is a well-deserved day off. This comes on their 10th day in space after 5 spacewalks to repair the blurred vision of the Hubble Space Telescope. The 7 astronauts spent the day enjoying the sights, more than 500 kilometers above the Earth. They also started planning for their return to Earth on Monday. And that's
offered things.
Wined and dined.
And tempted with things, and having things placed around you that you might want again, which they did offer a number of times for 6 months or so. And I turned down all of these offers.
So you said no more than once?
Oh, probably 15, 20 times, offer after offer, sometimes every day. Let's go out on the town. Let's go to Atlanta and really do it up. Let's go out fishing in the Keys on the yacht.
It seems like they were trying to wear you down. If they asked enough, they'd get you to say yes.
They didn't. We now know it was their job to keep asking. Isn't that what a sting's all about?
Not really. According to the FBI's published guidelines on undercover stings, entrapment is to be scrupulously avoided. And there must be an indication that subjects like astronaut Wolf are engaging in illegal conduct or predisposed to do so.
To try to set someone up, it really smacks of un-American activity. I don't like it.
Congressman John Conyers, the chairman of the House committee that oversees NASA, is a frequent critic of the space program.
Okay.
But Conyers says, based on what astronaut Wolf told Dateline, the FBI sting is not the way to go after what he says are the real corruption problems at NASA.
To take an astronaut who has no apparent connection with this, to hope that he will be lured into inappropriate conduct, is going down the wrong path. That's the kind of criminal justice we don't need.
As for the FBI, when we went to the secret command post in Houston, agents told us they were under strict orders not to talk about the case. And we got the same word from headquarters in Washington. No comment, because the NASA investigation is ongoing.
It has made the astronauts very aware that they do live in a bit of a fishbowl.
David Leitsma is the director of flight crew operations for NASA. in charge of America's 108 astronauts, including those in space tonight repairing the Hubble telescope. Leetzman says once the Hubble mission is completed, there'll be a full review of the case of David Wolf.
David may have exercised a little bit of bad judgment in going out to dinner and being wined and dined by these folks. He certainly did not do anything criminally wrong.
Authorities say the same cannot be said of other NASA employees and contractors who were also targets of the FBI sting, called Operation Lightning Strike. The undercover FBI companies are now being dismantled as agents prepare to present evidence to a grand jury that authorities say could implicate as many as 30 people who did not say no. Authorities say there are now serious allegations of payoffs in cash and real estate involving multi-million-dollar contracts for space projects. The kinds of allegations authorities say fully justify the FBI's sting operation.
Ready to go. Systems hot. 3, legs tight. Take a deep breath.
To become an astronaut, David Wolf had to go through a lot of tests to make sure he was made of the right stuff. Being subjected to 9 times the force of gravity.
The muscles tight. Squeeze the butt. Muscles tight. Breathe.
And endless nauseating medical trials. But no test was like the test Wolf did not even know he was taking in the back of a white limousine.
Are you sorry you ever stepped inside that white limousine?
Well, of course I am. I'm very proud of being a United States astronaut, very proud of being part of the NASA team. It killed me to have thought that I tarnished this agency, or that even the image was being put out that I tarnished the agency. How do you call your parents and tell them that what they're probably reading is not true, when all the kids, I sign pictures and write letters back to all the kids in this country that I have time to, and here I've let them down. This is a hard thing to live with. It's a terrible thing to be involved with, to even brush up against. It's hurt a lot.
NASA has announced that David Wolf has been cleared of any wrongdoing. Although Wolf says his colleagues advised him to avoid the media, he says he spoke out to clear his name.
They will spend much of the remaining time gazing down at Earth and packing their gear for the trip home. CNN's John Holliman reports.
The Earth is looking better and better to the Endeavour astronauts. Commander Dick Covey has been checking the driver's seat controls in anticipation of a landing ahead of schedule just after midnight Sunday night. The astronauts met with the media as a group for the first time as their successful mission to replace parts on the Hubble Space Telescope winds down. Payload Commander Story Musgrave says 5 spacewalks without a break is about all the astronauts should be asked to do.
Probably 5 back-to-back. That, I think we were at very good performance through there, but you might have to take more seriously if you're going to do more than 5 days back-to-back.
Tom Akers described damage he saw on the telescope after 3.5 years in space.
We saw a few places where it had taken some small impacts, nothing that penetrated it.
Astronaut Jeff Hoffman is an astronomer. He says he wants to use the Hubble telescope to look for ETs in distant galaxies.
Is to use Hubble in the search for extraterrestrial planets around other suns.
Before the mission, Story Musgrave said he'd be trying to make contact on his spacewalks with other life forms in the heavens. Did he have a close encounter?
I've always got my eyes and my mind open to absolutely any possibilities. I don't have any particular results this time. But my heart, my eyes, and my mind were open. I thought Story was the extraterrestrial.
As Endeavour passed over Florida, the crew must have been thinking about what it's done to polish NASA's tarnished image in the U.S.
Other than the sight of Hubble and Hubble being deployed after being successfully reconfigured, our passes over the United States at night have been the most spectacular thing we've seen.
The astronauts know they've convinced some skeptics that spacewalking humans could build a space station from the shuttle. The station program is skating on thin ice in Congress, and it's a sure bet These astronauts will show up on Capitol Hill soon after they return to Earth Sunday night. John Holliman, CNN reporting.
All the way down into deep Dixie. Atlanta, 27. Daytona Beach, 34 degrees this morning. Miami at 47. It'll warm up to about 70 in Miami if they're lucky. Let's
The astronauts took on a repair job with the world's greatest view.
Oh my goodness. Oh, except, Jeff, you can see the entire continent of Australia from here. See this? The whole thing.
They were there to give the Hubble Space Telescope an even more spectacular view by fixing its many problems. 4 members of the 7-member crew took a total of 5 spacewalks, the most ever for a U.S. space mission. For most of the maneuvers, one astronaut stood on the shuttle's robot arm, while the other floated with just a tether.
Coming up. Keep coming, Claude.
Much of what they did involved simply moving things around, but in a vacuum without gravity, that is no easy task. In their spacewalk early Monday, the astronauts were to replace and then return to Earth with 2 solar panels that have caused the orbiting telescope to shudder. But one of the old panels could not be rolled up, so astronaut Kathy Thornton just let it go.
Okay, they say you got to go for release. Expect 20 pulses on your HST. Hey, no hands. It is going to be 20 pulses. That looks like a burner, Tom. Look at it.
The panel will eventually burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. The next task was to replace the single most important instrument on Hubble, the wide-field planetary camera. The new camera contains small mirrors to correct the blurred image it receives from the primary mirror. A manufacturing flaw left the mirror nearsighted. Computer enhancements have helped correct the camera's images. But the mistake has been a huge disappointment for astronomers who had expected a clear view of the heavens back when Hubble was launched in 1990. When the team began to pull the new camera out of storage, astronaut Jeffrey Hoffman expressed the hopes of his fellow astronomers.
Oh, look at that baby. Beautiful, spanking new with take some nice pictures with that stepping down.
The new camera slid easily into the telescope's side. Seeing clearly was also the goal when the astronauts awoke for the 4th spacewalk. They installed a refrigerator-sized box which will correct the vision of Hubble's other instruments, like a pair of glasses. The pace was so relaxed that astronaut Tom Akers took a moment to throw a kiss to his family back home. The box, named CoStar, contains 10 small mirrors, all mounted on arms that can make tiny adjustments. NASA hopes that the unit will finally allow the instruments to make precise measurements. One of those instruments is a faint object camera designed to record images from the edge of the universe.
We've just completed eye surgery on the Hubble Space Telescope. We think it was successful, but we're not going to know for sure until we're able to take the bandages off 7, 8, 9 weeks from now.
It will take that long for astronomers on the ground to make fine adjustments to the Hubble's new eyes.
I'm hooking into the guy wire.
The final record-breaking spacewalk proved the most difficult. Astronauts Jeffrey Hoffman and Story Musgrave had trouble replacing an electronic device not designed for repair in space. And when it came time to extend the telescope's arms for the new solar panels, the motors weren't up to the job. But the astronauts were. They pulled them into place by hand. The motors which unfurl the solar arrays worked just fine, and the Hubble was looking ready to go it alone.
Okay.
Early Friday, the Space Telescope, with 11 new instruments aboard, was released in a slightly higher orbit.
I hope that this stunning example of what can be accomplished will really reinforce the support for America in space, both in the Congress and in the country. I think it will. All of you were just absolutely wonderful.
The crew received a congratulatory phone call from the White House. The astronauts met all of the mission's primary goals, and their success is sure to give a boost to NASA.
Anybody who still thinks NASA doesn't have the right stuff, today's NASA, must have been sleeping nights last week.
The agency says the 5 smooth-running spacewalks help show that NASA will be able to build and maintain a planned space station. But for astronomers, the success of this mission will not be known for weeks as they wait to see if the long-troubled Hubble has finally become their key to the mysteries of the universe. For Week in Review, I'm Miles O'Brien.
This is Mission Control Houston. We now have live television from cameras in Endeavour's cargo bay. Endeavour currently above the southern Pacific Ocean on a track that will have it make landfall above Central America. This view showing the solar panels, the new solar arrays that were installed by the crew on the second spacewalk of the mission and that were unfurled yesterday.
Roger, Houston, go ahead.
Cubby, we'd like you to go ahead and not perform the maneuver that you've got loaded up for 1800, and I'll tell you why. We have been spending a lot of time looking at DIU-2 telemetry, and we now conclude that we do see more than just data dropouts in that telemetry. We're looking at the signature of the power control unit, and it is indicating that there is some troubleshooting that is worthwhile to perform before we deploy this thing, primarily having to do with the A side of the DIU. So what we want to do is spend the next 2 to 3 revs doing this troubleshooting. It involves going to internal power once we get to our next sunset, and then swapping to the B side of that DIU. And in addition to that, we're also checking out the functionality of the battery charge relays. All of this is going to take at least 2 revs to accomplish, and because of that, we are definitely going to delay to deploy by 2 revs. During the next couple hours, we're going to be looking at all of this troubleshooting information, and by MET of 20 hours, we hope to have a decision of whether or not we will actually deploy today. This will, of course, depend on what we see over the next couple revs. In the meantime, we'd like you guys to sit tight. Don't perform any maneuvers. We like the attitude we're in right now. We will give you a call for the internal power steps, and we want you to just relax for a while and then bask in the glow of all the great work you've been doing the last week.
Okay, well, we understand, Susan, and we've got plenty of work to do other than to deploy, and we're taking care of that stuff now, getting tools put back together and stowed, and we'll continue working those things. My understanding is there's nothing in the flight plan that you want us to do then until you give us a call.
That's correct, Covey. If we decide that we need to put you to work on something else in order to make our time more efficient for the next couple days, we will call you.
This is the Space Telescope Operations Control Center at the Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, with that call from Mission Specialist Kathy Thornton confirming that the Space Telescope has now been switched to its own internal power sources. The next step in this troubleshooting procedure during this night pass, Endeavour now is on the nighttime side of Earth with about a little under 33 minutes left to go before sunrise comes again for the spacecraft. The next step is disconnection of the umbilical through which electrical power has been fed to the telescope throughout its stay in the cargo bay. And the Space Telescope now already operating off of its own battery power on board.
Endeavour Houston with the final chapter of the big picture.
Final chapters sound good. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, Covey, I've got good news. We have taken a look at that data from the B side, and it all checks out. The HST project would like to deploy today, and so we are going to go ahead and press toward a release. We are going to uplink to you a new replanned flight plan that has moved all of your activities for that Rev 121 deploy, and we just want to let you know that right now there's no activity required from you until about 21 hours even, when we'll be talking about a Group B power-up. We are hoping to get the uplink through tips of your new flight plan within the next half hour.
Great to us, and understand that until 2100 hours, which will be the hour, we'll have no scheduled activity.
And we're ZOE. That's good copy.
This view from the camera at the end of the arm as the fixture is lined up. And the payload deploying retrieval systems officer here, the position with the responsibility for the mechanical arm, reports that telescope's now securely captured.
That was a beautiful grapple.
Latches continue to open. Again, once all the latches are open, the next step will be for Claude Nicollier to lift the telescope from its platform to a position just above the cargo bay, position called low hover. The payload deploy retrieval systems officer reports telescope's now about 2 feet up above the platform as Nicollier continues to slowly raise it up to first a position paused above the cargo bay at low hover.
Commands are being sent now to open the telescope's aperture door and to activate the mechanism's control unit for the door emergency closure.
We have a good release. TIG SEP was 1 hour, 0 minutes, 22 seconds.
Copy. 1 hour, 0 minutes, 22 seconds, Cubby. And we have to say that through your superb efforts, you have really shown that NASA can do all that we promised to do and more, and we very much appreciate it.
Thanks.
The sentiments of the payload community and, in fact, all of the flight control team expressed on the model in front of the flight director console. HST reopened for business, completely renovated. That now that the telescope is locked onto the tracking and data relay satellite, transmitting data on its own.
Do you like this, Houston?
Oh, it's not bad. And I got to tell you, these views are so spectacular that over the course of the last week, we've seen so many spectacular views that you almost get numb to it. They're still incredible, though.
We know what you mean. It's hard to top the one from the day before.
You are right about that.
Okay, we really appreciate being allowed to sleep in. We got up kind of just in time to see this really spectacular Mediterranean pass at night, and we're looking at what looks like the brightest morning star you ever saw over here trailing behind us, which is the Hubble Space Telescope.
And this view showing the entire island of Madagascar off the east coast of Africa in the Indian Ocean.
Shuttle Endeavour.
Go ahead, Endeavour.
Roger, you getting downlink video of the dump?
That's firm. We're watching it right now. Looks pretty interesting.
kind of like a tinkle.
That's basically what Flight was thinking.
This view showing the arm as it descends down into the cradle along the left-hand edge of the bay. Once it's in the cradle, latches will latch it in place, and then it'll be totally powered off.
Houston Endeavour, are you getting downlink?
That's firm, we sure are.
Okay, well what you're seeing now is San Antonio at the top of the screen, Houston at the bottom, and Austin on the right side.
All right, that's a great view.
This view showing actually Houston, Texas, and
This is a narrow field of view camera. You should see what else we see.
We can only imagine, and we're all jealous.
Hey, Greg. Hey, if y'all are still getting our downlink, I wanted to let y'all know that you're seeing the great northwest Florida Gulf Coast and my hometown of Fort Walton Beach. And I'd sure like to send a hello to all my friends and family down there today.
Well, we're getting a great picture of Fort Walton Beach, and we'll pass that along. Looks like a good place to play golf.
We need to do that.
And Endeavour Houston, for Jeff, all of America would like to know what you've got and what you're doing with it.
Well, this is the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, and there's various ways that we celebrate it. And one of the games that we play is a little game with a dreidel, and it's something that you spin, and then you see which side comes up, and according to that, you either win or lose. And I was just trying to see how you might reinterpret the rules for spaceflight, since there's no up or down. And I guess on the subject, to help the celebration, I also brought along the other thing that we do. Hanukkah is the festival of lights. It lasts 8 days, and to celebrate it, we light a little menorah, which has 8 candles, and you light one more every day until finally on the 8th day, you have 8 candles. And so I brought a little traveling menorah. Of course, up here in the shuttle, we're not going to actually light the candles, but to help the celebration of the season, I brought it along. It's a little silver traveling menorah. And so with that and the dreidel, I'm all set for my onboard Hanukkah celebration.
We are getting a spectacular view of all of Florida at this moment, out the window.
And we have here the signatures of all the personnel of the Geneva Observatory and the Institute of Astronomy, Lausanne University.
Can we see it, Claude? Thank you. Endeavour, it looks like the entry team is going to come in and take our hours for the rest of the mission. So Orbit 1 would like to say adieu and good luck, and we will talk to you at Ellington.
This is Mission Control Houston. This television view from Endeavour's flight deck, the cockpit of Endeavour, shows Commander Dick Covey as he prepares to work with the pilot in-flight landing operations trainer. It's a simulation of landing that Covey and then pilot Ken Bowersox will both work with. Bowersox here right behind Covey as Covey works with it to hone their landing skills.
tacos down here taking notes.
Is forming over the middle portions of the U.S. and the front extends northward into Canada. Snow is expected around Lake Winnipeg, and also a strong storm moving into the Pacific Northwest to both the U.S. and Canada will bring in some rain and some snow expected in the higher elevations.
Astronauten, der Crew, darunter auch ein Schweizer, das Shuttle ja 5-mal. Wir haben Ihnen diese Bilder am frühen Morgen ja immer wieder anbieten können. Und dies ist ein neuer Rekord. Bei vorangegangenen Raumflügen stiegen Mitglieder der Mannschaft maximal 4-mal ins All aus. Die Endeavour-Besatzung setzte dem Weltraumteleskop unter anderem auch neue Linsen ein. Davon erhoffen sich die NASA-Mitarbeiter künftig sehr viel schärfere Bilder aus der Tiefe des Universums. Und wir sehen, dass diese Raumfähre langsam sich zur Erde senkt. Die Bilder, wie sie dann tatsächlich auf der Erde aufsetzt, werden wir Ihnen natürlich dann in wenigen Minuten anbieten.
It's making its descent to Earth. At any moment now, we expect the shuttle to land at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And we turn to CNN's John Holliman for live coverage of this event.
We're about 8 miles threshold at this point. Good views continuing to come in from the infrared cameras.
The following is CNN's coverage of a live event.
Hi, it's John Holliman. The Space Shuttle Endeavour is in its final approach for landing on runway 15 at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's been in orbit. You can see this is a picture taken from an infrared camera. And just a couple of moments ago, the shuttle was still glowing white hot from all the atmosphere it had had to burn through to get down for a landing. The shuttle's been in orbit for 10 days, 20 hours, and a few minutes now. It's scheduled to land in 90 seconds. The shuttle has traveled 4,433,772 miles.
Now passing through 5,000 feet.
After it touches down on the runway, it'll have about another 4 miles to go out to the end of the runway in Florida. The weather has been cooperating. There you see the runway. The weather's been cooperating for the crew to bring the shuttle in for a landing, and the Florida Strip is preferred to landing at Edwards Air Force Base in California because it will allow Endeavour to be ready for its next flight much more quickly.
We're now beginning to flatten its steep glide slope, coming in for final approach and landing.
You saw the huge vehicle assembly building in Florida there, and you can see the outline of the landscape as the Endeavour, still much hotter than the surrounding air, comes in for its final approach.
Gear down and lock. And touchdown. And nose gear touchdown. Drag chutes are out. Endeavour rolling out toward its final stop on runway 33 with a nice drag chute streaming out behind.
This landing strip has huge spotlights which are turned off for the landing of the space shuttle so that Commander Dick Covey could see just the landing lights as he brought it in for final approach and landing. Those lights will be turned on shortly and we'll be able to get a better view of the space shuttle. Endeavour's crew has had quite a mission, near perfect according to NASA managers.
We're back. Roger, Endeavour. Thank you for the flawless flight. We look forward to using HST, thanks to your great work, to see further into our universe than ever before. Welcome home. Thanks a lot.
And NASA.
Convoy Commander Endeavour, how do you read?
Yeah, CDR, this is FCC. I got you loud and clear. Welcome home, and we're on our way.
Roger, we got you loud and clear. Endeavour Houston, we have no post-landing deltas. You got to go to start on page 5-3.
Deltas in NASA speak mean problems, mistakes, things that have to be changed. And when they say no deltas, that means the shuttle is in very good shape, according to the ground control computers in Houston, which have been watching its flight for the past long period of time, nearly 12 days. The astronauts rehabbed the Hubble Space Telescope on this mission. They added a new main camera, new optical mirrors that should clear up the telescope's vision if they work. About 15 minutes ago, Endeavour was flying over Mexico City.
Endeavour touched down
Just a moment.
Precisely as planned at 11:25:33 Central Standard Time. Main gear touchdown and mission elapsed time, that would have been 10 days, 19 hours, 58 minutes, and 33 seconds. Nose gear touchdown was at 11:25:45, about 8 seconds after main gear. And wheel stop at 11:26:25. Well, for a mission duration, wheel stop of 10 days, 19 hours, 59 minutes, 25 seconds.
NASA has planned 9 shuttle flights for next year. Endeavour's next trip into space, tentatively set for April 7th. The next scheduled shuttle launch will be Discovery in about 4 weeks from now. A team of astronauts will take the SpaceHab module into orbit for 8 or 9 days. That's scheduled for January 20th at 6:42 in the morning, unless there's some problems. But as you can see from these infrared pictures taken from the Florida landing strip, the landing of Shuttle Endeavour seems to have been almost as picture perfect as the rest of its mission. And we can see that it looks like some smoke and fire coming out of the back of the shuttle. This has happened once before on a shuttle landing. We'll check into that and we'll be back with you if there's anything we should be concerned about. But according to everybody on the ground, it seems to be working very, very well. As we have for this mission and future shuttle missions, CNN will always be here with you for live coverage. John Holliman, CNN reporting.
This has been a CNN Live event.
Headline News, I'm Dave Walker. One of NASA's most experienced crews is back on Earth after completing the biggest repair job in space history. Space Shuttle Endeavour touched down at Florida's Kennedy Space Center 90 minutes ago. The 7-member crew spent 11 days in space to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. The historic mission included a record 5 spacewalks. Astronauts installed corrective devices that should clear up Hubble's blurred vision. The telescope was released into space Friday. NASA says it will now conduct tests to determine whether the repair job was successful. Final results won't be known for several weeks.
Im Flug ist die amerikanische Raumfähre Endeavour zur Erde zurückgekehrt. Am frühen Morgen landeten die 7 Astronauten in Cape Canaveral. Es war die zweite Nachtlandung seit Gründung des Kennedy Space Centers. Mit 5 Weltraumausflügen hat die Mannschaft einen Rekord aufgestellt. Dem Teleskop Hubble hatten die Astronauten eine Korrekturoptik und ein neues Antriebssystem eingebaut. In etwa 2 Monaten wird sich zeigen, ob die 630 Millionen Dollar teure Reparatur Hubbles Leistung verbessert hat.
Endeavour ist sicher in Cape Canaveral gelandet. Mit der Landung ging eine der spektakulärsten und wichtigsten Missionen der US-Raumfahrt zu Ende. Die 7 Astronauten hatten das Weltraumteleskop Hubble repariert. Kosten 630 Millionen Dollar.
Letzter Höhepunkt des spektakulären Raumfluges war die nächtliche Landung in Cape Canaveral. Und auch das meisterten die Astronauten mit Bravour. Zum 2. Mal erst landete eine Raumfähre bei Nacht in Florida. In den vergangenen Tagen hatte die Crew das Weltraumteleskop Hubble repariert. Der Erfolg ihrer Arbeit wird sich in wenigen Wochen zeigen, wenn das Riesenfernrohr die ersten Bilder zur Erde sendet.
Um 6:25 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit landete die Endeavour auf dem Weltraumbahnhof in Cape Canaveral. Am 2. Dezember war das Raumschiff mit 7 Astronauten ins All gestartet. Ziel der Mission: Das 3,5 Milliarden teure Hubble-Teleskop sollte eingefangen und von seiner Sehschwäche befreit werden. Aber erst in einigen Wochen wird sich zeigen, ob die Aktion erfolgreich war. Für die Reparaturarbeiten verließen die Astronauten insgesamt 5 Mal die Endeavour, ein neuer Rekord in der Geschichte der Raumfahrt. Rekordverdächtig sind auch die Kosten des Weltraumtrips. Über 1 Milliarde Mark machte die NASA dafür locker.
Die amerikanische Weltraumbehörde NASA, 1993 eher vom Pech verfolgt, kann zum Jahresausklang nun doch noch einen Erfolg verbuchen. Nach einem 11-Tage-Reparaturmarathon im All ist die Raumfähre Endeavour pünktlich und sicher zur Erde zurückgekehrt.
Gleich 5 Mal sind sie durchs All spaziert. Gleich 11 Teile des Weltraumteleskops Hubble haben sie dabei repariert. Nun, nach 11 Tagen, ein letzter Check des Landungscomputers. Die Endeavour-Crew startet zum Heimflug. Noch bevor die Raumfähre die letzte Strecke der 7 Millionen Kilometer langen Reise zurückgelegt hat, herrscht Hochstimmung im Kontrollzentrum von Cape Canaveral. Kein Wunder, hat doch die offenbar geglückte Endeavour-Mission auch das ramponierte Ansehen der NASA wieder aufpoliert. Mit einer fehlerlosen Landung um 6:25 Uhr haben die 7 Astronauten ihren Auftrag endgültig beendet. Und was hatte ihnen Präsident Clinton doch bescheinigt? Ihr wart einfach toll.
Ob ihre Arbeit erfolgreich war, wird sich erst in einigen Wochen zeigen. So lange dauert es, bis die neu eingebauten Instrumente aufeinander abgestimmt sind. Mit dem Weltraumteleskop wollen Wissenschaftler das Alter des Universums genauer bestimmen.
And finally, from the Orbit 2 team, we would like to convey our thanks to you guys for doing just a stupendous job. It was great for us to watch you professionals at work up there, and for me down here to watch the professionals at work down here. It was a heck of a team, and we're all proud of how well this has turned out. And we wish you Godspeed and a safe trip home.
Well, thanks, Greg and Milt and all of the rest of the Orbit 2 team that's there. We appreciate the work that you put in, being a part of the team, helping us through the things that we had to do in order to get to the end of this mission, which hopefully will be tomorrow morning, and we'll see y'all at Ellington later on in the morning.
You bet, Covey. We'll see you at Ellington.
Thanks a lot.
Pünktlich um 2:27 Uhr hob die Rakete heute Nacht vom Raumfahrtbahnhof Kourou in Französisch-Guyana ab. Angespannt beobachten die Raumfahrtexperten den Aufstieg auf der Computergrafik. Dann ist die kritische Phase überstanden. Der Applaus für den heute gelungenen Start gilt auch dem Erfolg des gesamten Jahres. 11 Satelliten hat die europäische Raumfahrtgesellschaft Arianespace ins All gebracht. Einer der beiden heute ausgesetzten Satelliten versorgt die USA mit 150 Fernsehprogrammen. Jetzt brauchen die US-Bürger nur noch Schüsseln mit 45 cm Durchmesser, statt wie bisher 3 Meter große Antennen.
Reger Verkehr herrscht derzeit im All. Nachdem die amerikanische Endeavour vor wenigen Tagen erfolgreich von ihrer Weltraummission zurückgekehrt ist, startete heute Nacht eine europäische Ariane-Rakete auf ihre Umlaufbahn.
Raumfahrtbahnhof Kourou, 2:27 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit. Der Countdown läuft. Zum 62. Mal hebt eine Ariane-Rakete ohne technische Schwierigkeiten von der Startrampe ab. 12 Minuten später setzt sie den ersten Satelliten aus, DBS-1, so heißt der direktstrahlende US-Fernsehsatellit, der künftig Zuschauern in Nordamerika weitere 150 TV-Kanäle beschert. Danach wird Thaicom 1 in den Orbit befördert. Der erste thailändische Fernmeldesatellit soll für die Telekommunikation und Datenübertragung in Thailand sorgen. Daher auch königlicher Besuch im Kontrollzentrum. Die Prinzessin von Thailand verlieh der ganzen technischen Angelegenheit einen noblen Beiklang.
After we take a break, we'll show you some new views of the Hubble Space Telescope repair mission. And on Tuesday, the 7 astronauts who flew on that mission got together to show off some of their favorite pictures and talk about the experience. Here are a few highlights.
The night ascent's pretty spectacular. You look out the window and it's like a welding torch going off when the SRBs light. KT got to look out the overhead windows, and I think that was pretty spectacular too.
It looked like daylight behind us on the pad, and I could follow it for maybe 20 seconds before it went into just light, just fire behind us.
Because of the altitude of the Hubble Space Telescope, we got to go into a relatively high, inserted into a high orbit. What we found almost immediately is this orbit allowed us greater views than we had seen before on any of our flights. This was what Houston looked like at night. We never saw the U.S. in the daytime. We saw it at night. And at the far top left is Chicago. Center screen is Atlanta. As we come across here, you can see the lights of Florida and then on up the East Coast.
In the other direction floated the reason for this mission, the Hubble Space Telescope.
The closer we got, the more excited I got. I was pretty impressed when I got my first view out the window, and that's just what it looked like.
And this is the final approach to the telescope. Cavi was flying the orbiter in a very professional way, and stabilize the orbiter versus the telescope in such a position that I could grab it.
Story Musgrave and Jeff Hoffman took the first walk in space. In NASA jargon, an extravehicular activity, or EVA.
It's an exciting moment when you first open the airlock and you look out and there's the entire universe staring you in the face. Some of these EVA shots are actually speeded up 2 or even 4 times because things move pretty slowly. This gives you the basic idea of how we work. One person on the arm, one person moving, helping free floating.
During the second EVA, one of the old solar arrays could not be rolled up to bring back to Earth, so Kathy Thornton had to release it in space.
It looked like a giant bird, giant soaring bird over the desert. It was just the most incredible sight. I was mesmerized for a period of time just watching it. And there's not much more you can say about it. It's just fabulous. You see the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and it was one spectacular sight.
Here we are coming inside after the final EVA day number 5, and we never really did let our hair down until this final day here. We breathed a slight sigh of relief on each day because we got each day's job done. But I'll tell you, we've been working at this for years, incredible attention to detail, and we did have a moment of jubilation here, although, of course, we had many weeks to wait to see that Hubble really did work.
After Claude released the telescope, I fired a few pulses to get us backing away, and the telescope slowly started drifting.
And here's the west coast of the U.S. as we complete our trip around the world. You can see San Francisco Bay up in the center, Los Angeles down at the bottom, Las Vegas coming into view. Las Vegas is outrageously bright. You could see the Strip from 350 miles. This is Houston. Take a look in the upper left corner and you'll see a very bright fireball meteor come through the atmosphere. There it is. You can also see Dallas and San Antonio there. And then that was looking from the east, so we continue to go. This is looking up the east coast. You can see lightning storms. You can see a little bit of aurora up there, looking back towards the west now over Florida.
This is HST. It continued to stay with us through the rest of the flight, and we called it our Morning Star.
There's nothing like bringing a space shuttle back to the Kennedy Space Center. The orbiter flies exceptionally well for a big glider, and we felt very good about safely rolling out to a stop and bringing STS-61, the servicing and repair mission, to a conclusion.
Those are some of the best long way away from home movies I've ever seen.
If this had not gone well, I think it's, at least the conventional wisdom has it, that the space station would have been in very big trouble, because how can you build a space station in space if you can't repair a satellite that had been designed to be repaired in space? Now that they've shown they can do it, that's necessary, but whether it's sufficient to restore enthusiasm for space station, to restore NASA's image in the public mind, I don't know.
Whether it's out of the wood will be, I think, determined by the next time there is a serious failure, and how the public and the media and the White House and the Congress responds to that, because such failures are bound to happen when you go for high-risk operations such as NASA goes for.
2 weken later wachten astronomen in het Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore gespannen af of Hubble nu eindelijk scherpe, gedetailleerde beelden van het heelal zal doorgeven.
Hey! Right there! Oh! Get it! Wait. Oh, no, go. Yeah, let's get it. Bring it up. Yeah, bring it up. Bring it up more. Come on. Oh. Come on.
Not bad.
That's it. There you go.
Maar Chris Burrows is er nog niet gerust op.
I was nervous because I knew there could be a lot of possible errors that we'd made in trying to understand the aberration. And I wasn't sure, even though we obviously had a much improved image then, I wasn't immediately certain that we'd really had fixed the problem.
De achtergrond is nog niet helemaal scherp.
It needed some analysis and some further tuning of the mirrors to be certain that we were in good shape.
Maar ze kregen in elk geval beelden.
That is better than any deconvolution you've ever seen. Yeah. Those are actually stars. Those are really stars.
I think you got it. Yep. Sir.
Een paar dagen later zagen ze dit met de andere camera. Vlak na de kerst zorgden de nieuwe CoStar-spiegels voor een gecorrigeerd beeld van een ster dat door een volmaakte telescoop leek te zijn opgevangen. Met de Europese camera voor lichtzwakke objecten konden ze nu een rechtstreekse vergelijking maken. Nu kunnen de astronomen een supernova waarnemen, een ster die zichzelf heeft opgeblazen. Voor de reparatie viel de uitdijende gaswolk weg tegen de achtergrondstraling van heldere sterren in de buurt. Daar is de supernova. Op de verbeterde foto's kan zijn ontwikkeling worden gevolgd. Nog maar 5 weken na de reparatie was de Amerikaanse senator, die Hubble een flop had genoemd, eregast bij NASA.
Good morning and welcome to NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center.
De senator kwam dit keer met goed nieuws.
The trouble with Hubble is over. We have here a picture taken of the image of a star with the new faint object camera. And this is only the beginning. And this is what the new 1994 wide field planetary picture will show us. The pictures are remarkable. We will now, because of the Hubble fix, be able to do 21st century science. I believe these pictures are tangible evidence that not only has Hubble been fixed, but NASA is well on its way to fix that culture that created some of these problems.
Voor astronomen zijn deze verbeterde beelden van immens belang. Voor het eerst kunnen ze nu op een afstand van 40 miljoen lichtjaar metingen verrichten bij sterren en op grond daarvan wellicht de leeftijd van het heelal vaststellen. 1200 astronomen willen daar het fijne van weten. De ruimtetelescoop kan 1000 keer zo diep in het heelal doordringen als vanaf de aarde. En de groothoekcamera krijgt nog betere beelden dan wanneer zijn spiegel wel goed was geweest. Hij ziet nu veel meer dan de kleuren van gewoon zichtbaar licht. Hier zien we een gigantische sterexplosie.
Nach den spektakulären Reparaturarbeiten vor 5 Wochen kamen jetzt die ersten Bilder auf der Erde an.
Für NASA-Offizielle war die erfolgreiche Hubble-Reparatur ein Wendepunkt. Jetzt sei jedem klar, dass Raumforschung keine sinnlose Verschwendung von Steuergeldern sei. Der Trouble mit Hubble gehöre nun der Vergangenheit an. Senatorin Barbara Michalski zeigte vor Journalisten erste Aufnahmen eines Sternensystems vor und nach der aufwendigen Reparatur des Hubble-Teleskops. Weitaus besser als erhofft sind nach Ansicht von Wissenschaftlern die Ergebnisse der ersten Tests. Schon bald soll das Hubble-Teleskop damit beginnen, schwarze Löcher im Weltraum zu untersuchen, die eine so große Anziehungskraft ausüben, dass sogar Sterne darin verschwinden. Ein weiterer Stern im Farbfoto vor und nach der Reparatur von Hubble. Wesentlich klarer und detaillierter. NASA-Astronauten hatten im Dezember während 5 ausgedehnter Raumaufenthalte über mehrere Stunden das Teleskop eingefangen und repariert. Mehr als 5 Milliarden Mark betragen die Kosten für die Korrektur an der fehlerhaft hergestellten Linse des Systems.
The US Space Agency NASA proudly displayed the first photos taken by the newly repaired telescope. They show a spiral galaxy 50 to 60 million light years away. NASA called Hubble's problems a thing of the past. A December shuttle mission helped repair faulty instruments that had previously sent back fuzzy images.
NASA hat heute erstmals Bilder veröffentlicht, die vom reparierten Weltraumteleskop Hubble übermittelt wurden. Sie zeigen Ausschnitte aus der 60 Millionen Lichtjahre entfernten Galaxie M100. Die Schärfe der Bilder wurde von der NASA einhellig gelobt. Damit habe sich der milliardenteure Raumfährenflug gelohnt. Mit dem Hubble-Teleskop soll jetzt nach den Ursprüngen des Universums geforscht werden.
You turned what some people had called a techno-turkey into a techno-turbine.
So it is no surprise the astronauts who repaired Hubble would receive a hero's welcome at the Space Telescope Science Institute.
Maybe having all of these problems along the way makes the moment that much sweeter when it finally comes. It's like, you know, the promised land is that much more beautiful because you spent 40 years wandering in the desert. I don't know.
The biblical analogy is apt because the Space Telescope is named for Edwin Hubble, the astronomer who in the 1920s found the first scientific proof that the universe is expanding. It's the basis for what we now call the Big Bang theory. Hubble once told an interviewer, astronomy is like the ministry. You need a calling. Here their faith was shaken but not broken. Still, some say it's too early to rejoice.
I'm just a little bit concerned that there may be now an excess of euphoria and a continuation of the hype and overselling. And if it is hype once again, and the science doesn't come through, and Hubble doesn't perform, it's going to be a very, very big disappointment.
Hubble was sold as the way to answer some big scientific questions. How large is the universe? How old? Is there life on other planets? Now that it is seeing clearly, it may finally deliver, bringing a renaissance to astronomy. Billions will be spent. In the final analysis, is the renaissance worth the price tag?
If all this telescope does is produce thousands of papers for the astronomical literature and make all the astronomers of the country happy, then it's a total failure.
For NASA astronomer Ed Weiler, the success of Hubble will be measured in classrooms like this one, where eyes light up, hands raise, and imaginations soar when there is talk of stars and planets and black holes.
And that's the lesson the Hubble Space Telescope teaches us. Try hard things, because if you don't try hard things, you're going to be in a lot of trouble 20 years from now.
If Hubble can win these hearts and fill these minds, then Weiler believes it will all have been worthwhile. Hubble is designed to last 15 years, so really the mission has just begun.